whistle that well. Okay, so here we are. Tubi Horror Weekend. We are gonna finish up this weekend with 3 reviews, hopefully. Celebrating the current holiday we have, which is Father's Day, we have 1987. Man, that year sounds familiar. Oh yes, that's the year I was born. 1987's The Stepfather, starring Terry O'Quinn, one of my favorite actors from Lost. And follows Jerry, the character of Jerry Blake. He is married to this woman who already has a daughter. And he's a serial killer, sort of. And he wants to keep the perfect family. That's his whole thing. He wants the perfect family. Like, as soon as he starts to realize it, it's all going to come down. And, you know, this perfect family isn't going to work out. He creates a new identity, and he goes to a different place, and he starts to set up another new life as a guy named Hodgson, right? So, you know, he wants the perfect family. I think, though, that perhaps, I don't think it would ever work. This guy is too mentally unstable for this to work. And when I'm looking it up on Tubi, because it's free on Tubi, the three original movies are on Tubi. It's a psychological thriller. I'm just like, that's a slasher film. Apparently, they did things so it purposely wasn't a slasher film. So it's a psychological thriller. So yes, Jerry has a stepdaughter. And I do like how they have the stepdaughter talking to a shrink for the first part of this film. My tooth. Ah, damn it. It kind of gives our framing of how she feels about him and the whole situation and stuff like that. Find out her father passed away before, and then you have Jerry coming in. And speaking as a guy who's had two stepfathers in his life, it is difficult. I mean, I never really knew my father, so that's a little bit different, but it's difficult when you have this your own little world with your family. Someone else comes in. It is different, you know. I think one of the signature scenes of this movie is when Jerry freaks out in the basement, not realizing his stepdaughter's right there, and as she sees this, she starts to do a story. She starts to see this story about this guy who killed his family, which is the opening scene of this film. We don't really get to see the killing, but we see the aftermath. You see Jerry, and this is where I think there's a bit of a problem with continuity or something in this film. You see Jerry for the first time as a Morrison. No, it's not John Morrison. He's not going slow motion. But he has raggedy hair, right? Bunch of raggedy hair and a beard. And you see him shaving and giving himself a haircut, right? Then he comes downstairs. And you see this massacre that he did. Like, how can he fight off? I mean, I've seen criticisms of, that's the remake, never mind. Like, how can he fight off an entire family? There's like 3 of them down there, and he's able to kill all of them. This took them all by surprise. But the reason there's a continuity error is later in the film, when he's on a ferry to somewhere else where he can change his name, we see he has a hairpiece. How could he have scraggly hair at the beginning of the film, but also have a hairpiece? Doesn't make any sense to me. Just doesn't. But yes, he has a perfect life, and things start to come down when the psychiatrist, because Jerry sells houses, the psychiatrist pretends to be someone else, and asks too many questions. Jerry thinks he's a cop, so he kills him. Then he realizes he's a psychiatrist, so he has to make up a story for his stepdaughter. He doesn't get suspicious, and strangely after this, they start to become closer. But there's stuff that happens. It makes me think that she should have been thinking more. Because, first of all, she sends out for a picture of the serial killer guy. And Jerry intercepts it. and switches the picture around. Now, she is there. He's there when she goes and she has any mail for me. He's like, yes, but I don't think you should be looking at this. And he pulls out a Cosmo because I'm part of the magazine. Okay, but it's still a little suspicious that when she eventually does get that picture, it's someone else. I don't remember if Jerry gives it to her or if someone else does, but it's just very strange. But she lets it go until, and even especially when he says that, he's the one who tells her that the psychiatrist was in a car accident, and she cries, he was my friend. A psychiatrist. I guess, if you know your psychiatrist good enough, could be your friend. Yes, so there's a scene, we get a few scenes of her, the stepdaughter, and her boyfriend. And there's a scene that I'm going to mention here because I'm going to call back to it later on in my review when I get to something. So, they get to the front door, he goes to kiss her goodnight, they start kissing, Jerry freaks out, and says, oh, you're trying to rape my stepdaughter, you're trying to rape my daughter, you're trying to rape my daughter, and he's like, I was just kidding, she's only 16, he's yelling out, so am I, and it's just like, well, first of all, I don't know, this scene doesn't make any sense to me, but it does add confusion later on in the film, we'll get to that, so, yeah, and this is where the cracks start, and the boyfriend I think he kills the boyfriend, if I remember correctly. But, or the boyfriend just leaves and doesn't come back. I don't know. But let's get to the climax, alright? Because the climax is very confusing. So, this guy, he's been going back and forth between being Hodgson, with a fake mustache and hairpiece taken out, and being Jerry Blake. And we get the infamous line when because the wife starts to get suspicious when she calls to tell him something and finds out he quit his job at the real estate office. When she confronts him about it, he says that the receptionist needs to be fired. She's wrong. And he calls in and he gives them the wrong name. He says Hodgson. She's like, what? What do you mean? He's like, wait. Who am I here? He's like freaking out and he says that and she's like, Jerry. He's like, right. Jerry Blake. And then he snaps. This is where he finally realizes, well, I fucked up. Time to finish this. So he goes after her. He stabs her, pushes her down the steps or whatever. And this is something I've been neglecting to mention because it's really doesn't do anything for the film, doesn't add anything. There's this guy who is the brother of the ex-wife, Jerry's ex-wife that he murdered, tracking him down. I thought he was a cop, but he's just a guy tracking him down. He tells the guy to run picture in the paper, or story with picture in the paper. The picture wasn't run conveniently. And then, so he eventually tracks Jerry down. And we have this confrontation that he goes to pull his gun out and Jerry stabs him, and that's that. During this is the scene I'm going to point out. At some point, the daughter comes home and decides, even though she's suspicious of Jerry, she's going to hop in the shower. And we see her naked. We see a character who's supposed to be 16 years old, mind you, naked in the shower. Now, keep in mind, the actress was in her early 20s at the time, but she's supposed to be 16. I don't know, I do find her more believable as a 16-year-old than I did find Alexander Daddario as a 17-year-old. However, it's a little weird. And even more weirder when you look at the creation of the character. The writer apparently based her on his own stepdaughter. To quote Mr. Wynn from Hey Arnold, so very, very creepy. But anyway, we get to the climax. I lost my train of thought there for a second. And Jerry just freaks out, goes to kill her. She defends herself, and then the wife, she gets the hold of the guy's gun, shoots Jerry, Jerry gets stabbed and is most definitely dead. You know, they made 2 more sequels and a remake. But, I gotta tell you though, I think Terry O'Quinn's performance in this film was fantastic. He does a great job of portraying a man who just wants to have a simple family, but his train of thought, his mind just won't let him. He keeps freaking out every time that he realizes that his plan is not going to work. I think his biggest problem was that he was trying to start a new life while still in his old one. And I think that's what got him, because then he started having 2 different lives and he messed up his name and it just kind of, went downhill from there. But overall, that was a decent film. I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10. It's not bad. Came out here. I was born, so of course it can't be that bad, but I thought it was pretty good. So, what are your thoughts on The Stepfather? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.